infringement upon that candidate's or that committee's free speech. Perhaps they see this as a return to the good old days, when the likes of Judge Clancy were up for sale to the highest bidders. But most Montanans remember their history better than that and don't want to take that path again. My office is working extremely hard to prevail in the case so we can keep political parties out of judicial elections and judicial rulings. And it's important to recognize, according to a recent poll, the respect the American public has for the U.S. Supreme Court has deeply eroded over the last quarter century, 1/4 of this building's life. In the late 1980s, about 66% had a favorable view. Today, it's just 44%. The poll also found that just 1 in 8 Americans believe that justices decide cases based on only legal analysis. Whether in Montana or Washington, D.C., citizens have the right to expect better from their courts. In Montana, our nonpartisan elections have helped guarantee the integrity of this judicial system. And that is now somewhat threatened by some cases. And given how divisive political ideologies have become, the very last place we need those ideologies is within a courthouse, and especially within the chambers of court. 100 years ago seems to have brought us full circle. Last week, we did lose that case to preserve the Corrupt Practices Act. We're right back where we were in some respects in 1906, when it was actually the Hamilton newspaper that said on its front page, the single greatest issue facing us today is whether the people shall control the corporations or the corporations shall control the people. Our nation's founding fathers recognized that an independent judiciary is essential to preserving our constitutional rights. Without that independent judiciary, equal justice under the law becomes just another hollow platitude, not the bedrock principle upon which a free and democratic society thrives. Montanans recognized these truths 100 years ago at the same time that this courthouse was being built, and they acted to wrest control of our government institutions from those moneyed interests. At that very same time that initiative passed, then the people of this great community were dedicating this incredible building. And like the foundation of this building 100 years later, I think the foundation of our democratic system still is strong. This courthouse has survived. It's survived because of the Jeff Hockadays and the Pat Hollands from years over years. We've been diligent. Our caretakers were attentive to the building's needs, kept it well maintained, kept it updated. And that's not just on the outside of the building. Those inside the building, the judges, the local officials, and the staff were equally attentive to make sure the courthouse and what it represents to all people continue to rest on a solid foundation. Now that the court has struck down our Corrupt Practices Act that was made a century ago, we'll have to be that much more attentive and that much more diligent. But with each of us standing strong and standing together, we can make sure that the foundation of this building, just as we've worked so hard to keep it what it is for this past century, we can also make sure that all that the building represents stands strong until that next centennial anniversary. Sometimes it's hard not to get discouraged, so I'll leave you with a couple of words from veteran journalist Bill Moyers. He said that if the generations before us had given up, slaves would still be waiting on these tables. On election day, women would still be turned away from the voting booths, and workers would still be committing a crime if they organized. So once again, take heart from the past, and don't ever count the people out. Remember, democracy doesn't begin at the top. It begins at the bottom, when flesh and blood human beings fight to rekindle the Patriot's dream. We have so much to be proud of the last century of this building and all it represents. And we have so much to aspire for the next century. Thanks so much for including me in today's